Hi lovely girls. Okay, today I'm going to do you a story kind of from my head, but it's a traditional story that you probably already know, but it's nice to tell the same story, I think. So I'm going to tell you the story and then I'm going to ask you some questions at the end. And then Auntie Becky and you, Brooke, and you, Tex, you can talk about them and you can have a little think before getting off to bed. So the story that I'm going to tell you today is the story of the ugly duckling. Once upon a time there was a mummy duck, and one day she laid her eggs and waited for them patiently to hatch. And as they hatched, all of these beautiful fluffy little yellow ducklings came tottering out. And then there was one duck that was a little bit different. He was sort of mucky grey, a dirty, scruffy looking little bird, different to the rest. And even the mum looked at this little bird and shook her head. He was so different to the rest of them. And because he was different, the rest of the ducklings didn't let him play with them. When he came over and said, "Can I play?" they would say, "No, you look weird. You're grey and scruffy and you don't look like us. We're beautiful." And off they would swim across the lake, leaving him on his own. And the poor ugly duckling felt so sad, so left out and so alone that one day he decided that he was going to go and find ducklings just like him. Because he thought there must be, I can't be the only one in the whole world. So off he toddled to go and find ducklings just like him. And as he was going on his travels, he saw all kinds of beautiful birds. Pink ones, blue ones, a little robin redbreast. And he thought, I wish I looked like that. Everybody else has got friends and having fun, and I'm just on my own. There's nobody like me. And he sat down and he cried. He cried his eyes out and tears streamed down his little black and grey face. And suddenly he was scooped up and captured by the farmer's wife. And she took him to the farm and she locked him in a cage. And all of the other animals looked at him and they laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha. You have to lay some eggs for the farmer and his wife, and if you don't, they're going to cook you and eat you." The duckling couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. "What do you mean I've got to lay eggs?" he thought to himself. I don't know how to lay eggs, he thought. And so he sat there. He sat there and he tried to lay an egg. And he tried a bit more and he sang a little song and he tried to lay an egg, but he didn't know how to lay an egg because he couldn't lay an egg. And the chicken laughed at him and all the little mice pointed and laughed at him. And he felt rubbish and he sat in his cage and he felt sad even more. And the weeks rolled by and he still couldn't lay an egg and he was getting worried that he was going to be cooked up for the farmer's supper. Thankfully, on one of the days, the farmer's wife left the cage off its latch and he sneaked out, he waddled out and he escaped. But again, he was back in the big, wide world on his own, with nobody with him, and he felt so sad once more. And he sat down and he looked across the lake and he saw some beautiful birds, white birds with long white necks, graceful, pretty, and they all looked like one big family, and he just wished that he could have that too. And as this happened, it started to rain, and it rained and it rained, and the poor ugly duckling was soaked through and he looked all soggy and wet. Another farmer was walking past and he picked up the little duckling and he put him in his jacket and he said, "Come on, my son, you're coming home with me. I'm going to look after you." And he took him back and he took him back to the farm and he took him inside the warm house and sat him by the fire with his children. and the children let him dry, and they talked to him and they played with him, and they loved him very, very much. And the duckling felt quite nice. But the duckling was getting bigger by now. And after a few weeks of being with the farmer, he was way too big to stay. So the farmer took him back to the lake and he let him go. And as the duckling was about to get into the water, he looked down into the lake and he noticed his reflection. No longer was he the scruffy little ugly duckling bird that he once was, but he was a beautiful white swan with a long, elegant neck. He was graceful and beautiful. And just as this dawned on him that he was this beautiful swan, some more swans flew in and flocked to him. And they said, "Hi, you're a swan just like us. You want to be in our gang? Where have you been?" And he said, "Oh, it's a bit of a long story." And he smiled the widest smile he had ever smiled in his whole life. And he just burst with happiness. And off he went with his new family. He'd found his gang. He'd found his tribe. He'd found people just like him. And he lived happily ever after. And that is the end. So, my lovely, lovely girls, my questions to you are, firstly, if you are in a group and there is somebody different to you, maybe they look different, they talk different, maybe they're from somewhere else, what would you do? Would you include them? Would you not really play with them because they're a bit different to you? What would you do? Talk to Auntie Becky about that and talk amongst yourselves. The next situation or question I'm going to put to you is, if there was somebody in a group, so at the moment you've been going to a kids club, haven't you? So if you saw somebody that was a little bit different or was out on their own and didn't really have friends around them or wasn't in a group, what would you do? How would you include that person? Would you include that person in your group? And that is my questions. Oh, one more actually, that's not all my questions. Do you think it was fair that the ducklings, the pretty ducklings, didn't want to play with the ugly duckling because he was an ugly duckling? Because they were looking at how he looked, weren't they? So do you think that was fair? So talk to Auntie Becky about that. And then lastly, I'm going to squeeze in one more, and Auntie Becky's going to kill me because you need to go to sleep. I want you to say 3 things each to each other. So Becky, Texas and Brooke, I want you to say 3 things that are lovely in some way about the other, something that you like about that person, and that could be something about the way they look or something about their personality, something that they do, something that you like about them, something lovely about that person. So 3 each, go. And I'm going to tell you 1 each for you guys. So I'm going to say, Texas, I love how strong and confident you are. I love that. I love how brave you are. I'm kind of giving more on. I love how brave you are, how you try new things. Brookie, Cookie, I love how interested and friendly you are with people, how interested in other people you are, how friendly you are, and how confident you are as well. And Auntie Becky, I love how caring you are and kind and thoughtful about other people. I love that. And that is it. There's loads. I could keep going for you guys because I love you all so much. Good night, get some sleep, and I'm sending you a big fat kiss. Mwah!